I can't believe we are this close to the release of The Rise of Skywalker. And again, it's an understatement to say that I'm excited. I'm thrilled to be just a few days out from the release of this movie, almost to the point where, no, I was going to say I want a little bit longer to sort of relish the waiting part of it, but I don't. I want to go watch this movie right now. I'm so glad you're with the show this week, and I really hope you're as excited as I am. It's a lot of fun to go online, to go on Twitter, and even see some YouTube shows from people that are genuinely excited to see this movie. Because there's a lot of people out there that are, using this moment in the Star Wars fandom for attention, for clickbait, for video views, all leaning towards the negative, and I'm doing my best to ignore that as much as humanly possible and just relish this amazing time to be a fan in the fandom of Star Wars on the cusp of the final movie of the Skywalker saga. And every little piece of new information that we see, a new clip, and certainly this new trailer. I mean, it really is. It's a spot. It was put up on Facebook first, but it really is another trailer. And what it showed at the beginning of it was just so fantastic. And I can't wait to talk about it on the show this week. As always, you can email me, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment on YouTube as well. There's a lot of stuff happening this week. So before we dive into the list of things that I want to talk about on the show and your listener feedback this week, let's talk a little bit about expectations of what's going to go down this week. So Mandalorian, right? Just in terms of Star Wars, I'm behind on Resistance right now. I haven't watched last week's episode because I watch it with my now 13-year-old son, and he's been busy all this week, so we've been holding off on watching it. But of course, we had a new Resistance last week. Still really enjoying that show, even if it is skewed a little bit younger. Watched the latest episode of The Mandalorian, episode 6. Might be my favorite one so far. I'm not going to give any spoilers away. We'll be talking a bit about The Mandalorian again later on in the show, along with Baby Yoda and why, potentially, Baby Yoda has become so popular beyond his adorable cuteness. But we've got the new episode of The Mandalorian, and then on Monday is going to be a big day, and I'm really excited for this. I was excited when it happened during The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and really anticipating Monday night. So what's Monday? Monday is the worldwide premiere. There'll be a red carpet show that'll be on the Star Wars page and also on YouTube. That starts at 5:30, I believe, Eastern, so that'll be about 7:30 my time. Probably won't be able to watch a lot of it, but after the premiere on Monday night, those that attended the premiere will be able to go online and give their initial reaction to the film. So, needless to say, on Monday night, it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to get a full night's sleep because I know the moment that I get up to go use the restroom or whatever, I'm going to be going to Twitter to find out what people's initial thoughts on this film actually are. So you're going to get more of that throughout the week. The review embargo, I think, lifts sometime later on Tuesday, so the full reviews will start popping up. And then Wednesday, we will get the second to last episode of The Mandalorian, and then, of course, on Thursday, it's the debut of The Rise of Skywalker. It's crazy how quickly time has flown by. All right, let's get into the content this week, and let's start here. This is just weird. I'll keep it short, but I had to talk about it on the show. So I spend a lot of time on the Reddit's leak page, and earlier this week, somebody had posted what it was a television spot, an ad for Burger King in Germany. Couldn't understand what was being said during the ad because it was all in German. But it was clear it was Star Wars themed because of the fact that while Star Wars wasn't specifically mentioned, there were patrons coming into the restaurant dressed like Star Wars characters. There was a Jedi, someone looked like Han Solo, somebody dressed like Princess Leia from A New Hope. So the person on Reddit posted this, and it was Whopper spoilers. And if you follow any Reddit pages, but specifically the Star Wars Reddit leaks page, there are moderators on there that are very keen to go and sort of pull down stuff that doesn't fall into the leak category. I expected that this particular post was going to get removed. And then I started reading the comments from people that actually understood and could understand German. And it turns out that the spot was the employees of Burger King inviting these Star Wars fans to read spoilers from The Rise of Skywalker in order to get a free Whopper. And apparently this involves an app that you can download that if you read these spoilers, they will give you a free Whopper, and they were giving you these spoilers. And in the commercial, you could see visibly upset patrons of Burger King because they were being told spoilers. The kicker of this whole thing is that the promotion company, the marketing company behind this particular promotion, they actually went to the Reddit leak page and pulled the Jedi Paxis leak list and were using those leaks. Now, for all intents and purposes, those leaks are, for the most part, accurate. So this wasn't like Burger King was making up stuff. They actually, whether they knew it or not, they actually grabbed legitimate leaks and were using it as a promotion. Now, this gained somewhat worldwide attention. It wasn't covered a ton. We covered it on my weekly radio show on Twin Cities News Talk. We have a segment in the first hour of the show where our producer, Samantha, she compiles the top 5 stories she thinks that you need to know to start your day. And we used this Burger King story as one of them. Disney didn't pursue any recourse as far as we know, and it's probably because they danced around any potential license pitfalls. And Star Wars was never mentioned. In the leaks, it was like, a sword girl does blank to, evil man kind of thing. I was just stunned that a major corporation would go this route for this type of promotion. I really thought it wasn't cool, to be honest, especially given the fact that in that actual spot they were saying these spoilers out loud. So, I mean, even if you're a casual fan, you're going to go and pick up on what it is that they're saying, no matter how nuanced it was or non-specific it was. It was the strangest thing in following the fandom that I have ever seen. It was so utterly bizarre. But this whole run-up to the Rise of Skywalker, when it comes to the fandom, has just been bizarre. And I guess if you back up a little bit more, you go back to Solo and you go back to certainly The Last Jedi, which people are still talking about, and we're going to be talking about on the show this week. It shouldn't come as any big surprise. This is just the world that we live in now, and there is no escaping it. I make this same argument on our News Talk radio show, and it applies to pop culture as well. We just live in a world now where people are able to go and let every little small opinion or large opinion or comment that pops into their head be known to the world via social networking. I don't think the fandom has really changed. I don't think the fandom is too much more divided. I do think that people generally like to be sort of in the in crowds, and so I do think that some people's opinions may be skewed or perhaps have changed in the wake of a narrative that forms that seems to be of the majority, seems to be a consensus, say on Twitter. But that being said, I think that these opinions have always been there. They just weren't able to be seen by everybody on a whim. And this isn't changing anytime soon. I made a comment on Reddit under my Reddit name of Sin Argum, which is the bad guy from my book, that people complaining about, say, the Paxis leaks, which lack a lot of context, right? And it doesn't sound right when you're just reading somebody's bullet point list. That if we had the internet like we have now, back when The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi came out, you would have had individuals, if they had received a list of leaks written the same way that Paxis leaks were written. That's not a dig on him. He's not a writer. He's just presenting information. That you would have had as many people within the fandom complaining about things in The Empire Strikes Back. For example, if you read before The Empire Strikes Back came out the details of the movie, moments like, Leia communicates with Luke, hanging from the weather vane at the bottom of of Cloud City. You would look at that and go, wait, Leia can access the Force? That's a new thing. When did that happen? Is she a Mary Sue? Wait, what is Cloud City? That just sounds dumb. Even when you go to the end of Return of the Jedi, if you see it laid out in just sort of bullet point style, so wait a second. Darth Vader turns good, throws the Emperor down a shaft, and he explodes, only to die right afterwards. And the end of the film, Han and Leia kiss, and there's an Ewok, a small-looking, a Wookiee character. Well, not Wookiees, but I'm saying, I'm trying to keep it with sort of the generic, a small, furry, woodland creature on Endor is standing next to them when they kiss, encouraging them on. What is this nonsense? You see what I'm driving at here, right? This is just the world we live in right now, and unfortunately, I do think that this is also going to be the future of some forms of marketing. I had initially thought when it came to this Burger King ad that perhaps Disney was the ones behind it, and they were trying to dispel the myth of these spoilers and saying they're not true. But based off a lot of new information that's come out, it looks like a majority of these Paxos leaks are true. Even if I think that the ending is still very much up in the air. I think that the core of the ending is there and has been put out online. But in terms of exactly what happens, I think there's a lot of different speculation and nobody's really nailed it. We'll all find out here in a few days. All right. So moving forward, speaking of The Rise of Skywalker and footage, this new trailer dropped. It's about a minute and 51 seconds. Really surprising. Matches the description that was put out of what the trailer was going to be before the full trailer came out. Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.net had put out an article saying that the trailer was going to showcase Kylo Ren arriving on this rocky, dark planet, igniting his lightsaber, and then heading into underneath this like cube structure, and then lower down into the core of the planet where he comes face to face with Palpatine. That's essentially what happens at the beginning of this new trailer. I was surprised that they released that long of a segment again. It really wasn't that long, but it's so compelling, and I'm convinced it's the opening of the film. So the trailer starts off with a starscape, and then you see this deep red nebula off in the background, and we've seen that already in one of the clips. We saw the Tantive 4, or the Corellian Corvette, and a couple of X-Wings traversing this red sort of corridor in space, right? Like a nebula, not all that unlike when they travel to Kessel in Solo. And there's a reason for that, and I think we've actually find out the reason in this clip. You see Kylo Ren's TIE Whisper fly into frame, and the sort of leap in logic is that he's come out of that nebula to travel to wherever this particular planet is. Then we see a shot that we've seen many times of his TIE Whisper sitting on the ground in on this planet, and he walks by the camera and ignites his saber. This is the clip that I had initially thought many shows ago was actually the start of the Force Flash fights, which I'm not even sure are taking place anymore. But these Force fights that were supposed to be taking place where Kylo Ren and Rey would be going from location to location, and I was convinced that was actually on Pasaana, but they were entering into the Force realm, and so the color scheme had changed. Well, it turns out it's not the case. It appears to be this planet, Exegol, I believe is what it's supposed to be called. And Kylo Ren is clearly going to visit somebody, and we find out in the trailer who that is, just based off of the voices speaking to him. I'm convinced this is the beginning of the film. I think that we're going to get A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away. We'll get the fanfare. We'll get the Star Wars logo fading off into the starscape. We're going to get the crawl. The camera's going to pan down. It's going to pan down to that red swirly nebula and Kylo Ren's TIE Fighter coming into frame. Now, I'm sure it was edited for length for the trailer, but all the visuals attached to the very beginning of this spot, and the spot then rolls into a majority of clips that we've already seen before, Pasaana, battle with the Star Destroyers, clips of our heroes, the lightsaber fight on the Death Star 2. It ends up moving into clips that we've seen before, but the beginning of this trailer was incredible. The visuals were stunning. It was dark. It's eerie. It's ominous as Kylo Ren gets lowered into these caves and goes walking through these old ruins and by these glowing vats. Many people have pointed out that in the background it looks like there are actually statues. One of them looks like Darth Nihilus from the video games. You can actually see it in the background. I think that's Knights of the Old Republic 2, right? Am I right? Darth Malak was one. I think I'm Knights of the Republic 2. And as Kylo's walking, you hear these voices. At last, my boy, every voice that you've ever heard, in your head was me, or something to this effect. I'm just riffing off of it. But the voices you hear are, from what I can tell and what I've been told, you hear Han Solo, perhaps mixed with Palpatine. You definitely hear Palpatine. You hear Snoke, perhaps mixed with Palpatine. Then you hear Darth Vader, right? I have been every voice that you have heard inside your head. Just so creepy, so incredible. And then you have the shot of Kylo Ren igniting his lightsaber. Okay, and so we're going to assume he's coming face to face with whatever this is, if it's Palpatine or whomever. I love all of this. I love all of this. The more that I read about Chris Terrio, it really seems as if this guy gets the lore, and they went there in this movie. They're going deep in this movie. It really is going to be a culmination of this fight between the dark side, the Sith, and the Jedi. And that's what has me super excited. There's potential even in this opening scene that this may go well beyond even Darth Sidious, even Palpatine. I think there's a good possibility that Palpatine is definitely back in a certain way, but this is more than just Palpatine. This is dark side energy manifesting in a single person, and I love this idea because it needs to bring a finality to it, right? I almost feel like the place that Kylo Ren is entering is sort of a Sith relic of some sort. Now, it's not Dathomir. I believe that's the Sith homeworld, right? Kind of become accustomed to that. So what I'm hoping this is some sort of secret location where the embodiment of the dark side and the Sith actually rests, and that's where this evil character of Palpatine, in whatever form he is, and is going to potentially send Kylo Ren off on whatever mission he's supposed to go on. And the explanation will probably be handled in that opening crawl. I just was giddy yesterday after seeing this clip. Just truly, truly incredible. And I mean, again, every week I think I can't get more excited for this film, and I just get more excited for this film and what J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio were able to accomplish. I hope the movie does well. I really do. But at the same time, I don't care. And I'm going to use this as the transition to the next part of the show. And that's because I'm trying as a fan to not care how the box office is. I just want to enjoy these films and these shows for what they are. It makes it hard, being a talk show host for one, being a podcast host and a YouTube host. Again, it's kind of hard to ignore this stuff. I certainly am doing the best job I can of having it not bother me. But the cast and crew of The Rise of Skywalker have obviously been out and out on the talk circuit and been promoting the film. I think a lot of them are tired. If you follow any of this stuff, you can kind of tell they get tired of asking the questions. My favorite band ever is Depeche Mode, and one of the documentaries for their album Sounds of the Universe, they make a comment at the beginning of an interview that they do in the documentary, and the lead singer Dave Gahan basically says, or I think it's Martin Gore, actually. He's the songwriter and also singer. He makes a comment that, this is one of the first interviews they're doing, so the interviewer is getting them when they're fresh, because usually they get really tired of answering these same questions over and over again. And I think that's part of the reason why we've been getting some of these comments that we have from cast members that seem to be somewhat disparaging to The Last Jedi. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, except for the fact there is a lengthy piece that I am going to dive into right now from Lindsay Romaine from Nerdist, because a lot of this stuff is personal opinion of the actors. I know it's being used for individuals who want to reinforce their opinions about how they feel when it comes to The Last Jedi. I get that. I'm not surprised by that. At the end of the day, I don't care what the actor thinks about the film that they were in. I don't care what the actors or actresses think about politics. Daisy Ridley made some political statements about politics here in America this week, which I'm not going to repeat because this is not a political show. But, the part of me just went, okay, whatever. Because I didn't agree with them, right? I thought they were very, I'll be honest, ignorant statements. Mark Hamill, I know, is incredibly active on Twitter when it comes to politics. And I just ignore him as an actor, love him as Luke Skywalker, completely disagree with him on his political ideologies. But John Boyega took a bit of a shot at The Last Jedi and called it iffy and said he talked with Mark about some of the choices that were made. And that, to me, is a bit of a bummer. But at the same time, they're entitled to their opinion. And in this world that we live in right now, where people can go and share their views and opinions on a moment's notice without even thinking twice of whether or not they should be sharing these views and opinions, this isn't going away anytime soon. So maybe all of this that we're going through within the fandom will help us in the future be better fans and be in a better position to compartmentalize this stuff. Several of the listener comments that we have this week kind of talk about this, so I'm going to move over to this article here and address some of these points further when we get to the listener feedback portion of the show. I do want to share this particular article with you, and I went through to edit it, but it really is good top to bottom, so I'm going to read the majority of it and give you my thoughts on it. But this is from Lindsay Romaine, and the title is The Last Jedi Didn't Break Star Wars, It Saved It. I will say this, and this is probably going to contradict everything I just said a moment ago. It would be great to have somebody really break down the reaction to The Last Jedi. Like, even a part of me, having just finished book 3 in my space opera science fiction trilogy, now it moves over to editing as the cover art's being done right now by Tom Edwards Designs, TomEdwards.com. That's your free plug there, Tom. There's a part of me that says, man, I wouldn't mind writing, instead of writing a fiction story, write a nonfiction story and make it about The Last Jedi and the reaction to it. And something I'm kicking around, but I don't know if I would enjoy writing that type of book, so we'll have to see. But let's get into what Lindsay Romaine had to say in this article. Will a week ever go by where we aren't talking about The Last Jedi? The 8th film in the main Star Wars saga came out 2 years ago, and yet it's routinely the subject of mass hysteria on social media. Overrated, underrated. Did writer-director Johnson break the franchise or shatter blockbuster storytelling boundaries? Was it a healthy thing for the fandom, or a sign that it's beyond repair, littered with folks who don't know what they want, bolstered by a company that doesn't understand its power? ? The release of The Rise of Skywalker, the final film in the episodic franchise, is a mere week away, and with it comes another refresh of The Last Jedi discourse. But this time, a lot of it's coming from Star Wars cast members and creatives. In a recent New York Times profile, J.J. Abrams returns for the Rise of Skywalker. He spoke of the divisive Jedi, and he said this, doing that thing with my fingers. It's a bit of a meta approach to the story, he told the paper. I don't think that people go to Star Wars to be told this doesn't matter. Now, we're going to add some qualifying comments to and some context to those particular statements. JJ, of course, is entitled to his opinion, and even that comment doesn't mean that that's good or bad. I think it more speaks to, I don't think people go to Star Wars to be told this doesn't matter, even though that's what happened, and then not following it up with whether that's good or bad. See, I take that more as, especially coupled with this other quote that we'll get to at the end of this Lindsay Romaine article, I take that more to mean that's why there was discourse with the film, because people got something that was unexpected. Okay. Elsewhere, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega expressed relief that Abrams was back. In the Times profile, Ridley said she cried at the news he'd returned because of the safety he provides on set. Boyega had a more pointed reaction. Even as a normal person in the audience, I wanted to see where the story was going, referring to the story that Abrams set up in The Force Awakens. And that was, in his opinion, thrown for a loop in Jedi. In a separate interview with Hype Beast, Boyega said he disagreed with a lot of the choices in The Last Jedi and said the movie felt iffy to him. To the comment that Daisy Ridley made, a lot of people have pointed to the fact that perhaps her emotion was less tied to J.J. Abrams, not tied at all to Rian Johnson, and was more speaking to the fact that Colin Trevorrow was supposed to do the film and then he didn't, and that J.J. Abrams was going to be providing a sense of security on the set. I believe that's what most people are saying. That's what she really meant. Some people took it to mean, well, Rian Johnson was a jerk, or, didn't feel secure on the set, or she didn't like what he was doing, and blah, blah. No, it makes more sense that if Colin Trevorrow left, especially in the wake of so many other publicized departures of content creators from other Star Wars projects, it makes sense that she would say she cried because of the safety he provides on the set, meaning she knew if J.J. Abrams was coming back, they wouldn't have to deal with any directors leaving. In terms of John Boyega's comments about the Last Jedi, look, that doesn't surprise me. John Boyega is the biggest fan of Star Wars before being cast in Star Wars, and he just, if I'm going to be stereotypical, he just seems like the kind of fan that perhaps was looking for more of a heroic journey throughout the film of Luke Skywalker than the recluse, I'm hiding myself on an island only to return at the end and become the most powerful Jedi we've ever seen in a way that we never expected, which was just fantastic in The Last Jedi. It's interesting, too, because there's been a lot of commentary around the group of characters being together in this final film and not being together in The Last Jedi, and even some what seem to be complaints about that. J.J. Abrams addresses it in this further comment, which we'll get to here in a moment. Abrams and the actors are certainly entitled to their opinion, says Lindsay. The specific way these quotes are angled seem intentional on the eve of The Rise of Skywalker. They feel like another one of Disney's controlled marketing narratives to both have their Star Wars cake and eat it too. And Lindsay provides examples, because at first I was like, would Disney really do that? And then you go, oh, maybe they would. The Force Awakens marketing put a lot of emphasis on the film's use of real sets and practical effects, distinguishing it from George Lucas's prequel trilogy while quietly throwing it under the bus, even though The Force Awakens had more special effects shots, CGI, than The Phantom Menace did. Who knew? A making-of documentary on the film's Blu-ray never once mentions Harrison Ford's unfortunate on-set accident, the one that derailed production for months and forced major rewrites. The non-saga Star Wars films all faced serious behind-the-scenes troubles that were promptly swept under the rug. The Disney era of Star Wars, like most things Disney, prefers the denial approach to controversy, reference it to subtlety, if at all, and move on. Boilerplate answers from cast and crew during press interviews for The Rise of Skywalker maintain another narrative, that The Last Jedi didn't derail Abrams' master plan, but the choices weren't ones that he'd make. The repeated adage that 9 is an ensemble piece, emphasizing the relationship between Rey, Finn, and Poe, feels like a backhanded dig at Jedi, which kept the trio apart. It was hard for all of us because we were separated, Boyega told Hypebeast of the filming of The Last Jedi. Now, Lindsay goes on to say, it's a fair point. The Rise of Skywalker marks the first time these three main heroes will interact as a core group, but that isn't the fault of The Last Jedi or even Rian Johnson, and framing it as such feels misguided. The Force Awakens also kept those characters apart. They never functioned as a trio or been set up as one. Rian Johnson inherited a host of cliffhangers and half-finished arcs in The Last Jedi that Abrams teed up in The Force Awakens. Abrams separated Rey from the main group, teased her lineage, left Finn in a coma without a pledge to the Resistance, never set up the state of the galaxy post-Return of the Jedi, plopped Snoke into the plot without any context, Luke into isolation, right? Luke felt responsible. Han Solo says of Luke's disappearance in The Force Awakens, he just walked away from everything. Johnson's film took all of those dangling threads and weaved them into a beautiful story, one that demonstrably provoked a fandom a little too obsessed with idol-worshipping. It didn't smear the legacy of the characters so much as it deepened and matured them. It made them better. Leia's loss of faith and Luke's restoration of that hope for her and for the galaxy cracked open a universe of possibilities. One that undercut the notion that the Force makes you inherently important and made Star Wars even more for everyone than originally envisioned. Abrams' critiquing the meta qualities of The Last Jedi feels backwards in a few vital ways. First, it insinuates that The Force Awakens wasn't meta, even though it's literally the story of a generation of Luke Skywalker worshipping rebel wannabes implanted into the fantasy adventure stocked with recognizable characters and totems. That's about as metatextual as it gets. It also suggests that Johnson somehow compromised or undermined Abrams' own vague world building when he never made clearly defined choices in the first place. He outlined a trilogy, walked away, then returned in a simmering wave of internet vitriol that could either be eradicated or weaponized to sell the next product. The Times comments are soft enough that you can read them both ways, but the disappointing aspect comes from the coded commentary and things left unsaid. None of the promotion contends with the truly vile things happening within the fandom. Their own co-star, Kelly Marie Tran, was bullied on social media, but John Boyega spent most of his screen time with Tran, so his vocal dissatisfaction with the group separation sounds like an added dig at her, a way to validate those bad fans' mean-spirited rants, even if it's unintentional. Likewise, others have been on the receiving end of targeted hate, death threats, and rage campaigns, and personal attacks for simply liking things about The Last Jedi and expressing that fandom online. All right, there's two more paragraphs on here, but let me stop here for a moment and make a couple comments. I don't necessarily want to turn this into a big defense of The Last Jedi again. You can have your opinion on it. It's totally fine. I don't care. I happen to love the film. And knowing what we've seen so far of The Rise of Skywalker, I love it even more now. I can't wait to watch it this weekend. And you may ask, well, why do you say that, John, just based off of clips you've seen for The Rise of Skywalker? Because it seems like The Rise of Skywalker is going to be a white-knuckle hour-and-a-half adventure that's never going to let up. And I'm really excited about that. But I'm also really excited about that because we have this very special hour-and-a-half character study film that is artfully crafted, masterfully executed, highly entertaining and deep and rich with lore. And I love that about the movie. So I think that this whole trilogy of films and the fact that J.J. Abrams is opening and closing it is really going to make for a fantastic trilogy when all things are said and done. Kind of think of it like an Oreo. For those that listen to the radio show, I know it's funny I'm using an Oreo analogy again, but I am. Oreos are fantastic. Oreos are arguably like the best large corporate cookie ever made, in my opinion, right? Who doesn't like regular Oreos? They're so simple. It's kind of like Doritos, right? You can say other chips are good, but when you look at like sort of what is the pinnacle of large mass-produced corporate snack foods, Doritos and Oreos. It doesn't get any better than that, in my opinion. And this sequel trilogy is going to be like that amazing Oreo. You're going to get your cookies because you need your cookies, right? The cookies are great. Got to have the cookies. If you don't have the cookies, the top and bottom, you don't really have an Oreo, right? So you got to have those. They're wholly important and they taste good. And then right there in the middle, you got this creamy center that makes it all worthwhile. And that's what I think that this trilogy is going to be. It's going to be the Oreo of Star Wars films in the best possible way. And when it comes to The Last Jedi, too, and this sort of dovetails nicely into my conversation that we'll be having here in a moment when we talk about The Mandalorian. I love that storyline now between with Finn and Rose. And when you think about sort of the adventures that we've been going on in the first 6 episodes of The Mandalorian, these little tiny, these little short stories, relatively speaking, done in these really great ways, but they're simple, fun adventures. You could lift that whole subplot out of The Last Jedi and put it out on its own. It would be a fun Star Wars adventure, starting with with Finn and Rose meeting each other and the exchange that they have, and then their, mission to have to go to Canto Bight to find the Master Codebreaker, the traveling there, everything that happens on Canto Bight, that amazing father race. Side note, drives me nuts people talking about space horses. We got space horses now. Yeah, we had space horses in The Last Jedi, you fools. I say that with a smile. We had the father were space horses, but whatever. I know we're getting Orbaks, and the Orbaks are just as cool, and they're running on Star Destroyers, which was awesome, but we also had father, which are just as cool in my opinion, and that whole sequence was amazing in The Last Jedi. Of course, leading, to that father chase and then going to the supremacy and what they did there and culminating in that amazing one-on-one battle between Finn and Captain Phasma. And again, you're entitled to your opinion, but that was fantastic. Anybody that talks about Finn's arc all the way to Crate and how he's not relevant in The Last Jedi, what in the world? I'm sorry, he had an entire subplot story to himself along with Rose. All right, I'll get off my pedestal with the Burt Vader helmet sitting on top. All right, let's get back to this Lindsay Romaine article about The Last Jedi. No one is saying that dissent is a bad thing. Healthy debate is necessary. The actors don't have to love the movies they star in, but it's all about presentation. Loading a New York Times profile with coded disses at The Last Jedi a week before the Rise of Skywalker comes out isn't even a smart way to sell your movie. It makes the entire franchise look retroactively weaker, and it sets up major questions about the sequel trilogy, what the sequel trilogy is even about. Will The Rise of Skywalker feel like a movie or just a checklist of ways to cater to the backlash? Will it walk back the important themes of The Last Jedi? I don't believe it will. Especially Rey's realization that the legacy doesn't define her. I definitely don't think that'll be the case. Just to satisfy some quota. Is Palpatine back just to woo the fans uncomfortable with the more challenging villain like Kylo Ren? I don't believe that's the case either, based off of what I know, and I also think that J.J. Abrams is a much better content creator than that. It's impossible to say without seeing it, says Lindsay, and it's impossible to know what the future of Star Wars will be. Regardless of how the film plays, the smart play for Disney is to listen to the wisdom put forth in The Last Jedi about how to rebuild to make something new for the next generation of could-be fans. Something less obsessed with idols of the past than the awe and intrigue of the worlds yet discovered. We are what we grow beyond. I'm smiling and I'm laughing because I actually put that in an email to my father today. Yoda tells Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, that is the true burden of all masters. It's time for Star Wars to grow beyond. I can't wait to watch The Last Jedi. Here's what J.J. Abrams had to say in a quote that hasn't been shared a ton. Rian is an incredibly talented director. That would be Rian Johnson, in case you didn't know. Director of The Last Jedi. I don't know if you've seen Knives Out, says JJ, but I loved it. Just an incredibly talented guy and a great storyteller. So when he came on to work on the next film, and we were just starting to shoot The Force Awakens, I was really excited to see where he would go and what he would do. And it's funny, because one of the things that I was thinking at first was, I really want to see all the friends together. And in his story, they really weren't. Rey doesn't really meet Poe until the end. Rey and Finn are not really together in the movie. So in a way, the story that he told, in a lot of ways, helped set up what we're doing in 9. But it also allowed Episode 9 to have the group together and out on an adventure in a way that weirdly, even though it's the third film, it's the first time they'll all get to be together. But there were a lot of details and story points that Rian set up in The Last Jedi that we run with in this movie. I don't think this movie would have been nearly what it is without the choices that Rian made. So I am nothing but grateful, and the truth shall set you free. I have no idea why I said future. Look, I don't care. Again, the comments are interesting. Definitely wanted to share them with you on the show this week. But look, ultimately, I don't care what the creators or the fans think. I just want to love these movies, and I do. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, for a purpose, and for a design. We have control over our lives, right? We have our own free will. But the things that happen in our lives, both good and bad, in my opinion, they do happen for a reason. And this is a really good, This is a really good example of that. Regardless of how you feel about The Last Jedi, it happened. Rian Johnson made it. It made him a ton of money. It was an incredibly popular film. Sure, it was divisive, but good art does that. Good art is divisive. And if The Rise of Skywalker is what I think it's going to be, just an incredibly exciting, fun, fulfilling, satisfying, heart-wrenching, and emotional end to this journey that I've been on since I was 5 years old, then J.J. Abrams is 100% right. A lot of that is owed to Rian Johnson and what he did with The Last Jedi. I can't imagine, how quickly you'd have to go and develop a thick skin to be somebody like Rian Johnson. Look, I've been there. I've had plenty of people come after me for being a conservative talk show host, label me all kinds of things that I will not repeat on the show. I have people that make up garbage about me on a daily basis on Twitter, and I deal with it. It's hard. I'm human. I'm emotional, probably too emotional for my own good. But man, I can't imagine what it would be like for Rian Johnson to deal with the constant barrage of garbage that's spewed at him anytime he makes a comment on Twitter, especially about something Star Wars related, for crying out loud. And I do hope that when he goes to make more Star Wars content, which I firmly believe he's going to, especially given the fact that we got some information that he visited the set of The Mandalorian the second season. You don't do that if you're not working with Star Wars anymore. But I hope the fandom does what a lot of the anti-Last Jedi people have said, and that is, give his other Star Wars films that aren't a part of the core saga a shot. And speaking of everything happening for a reason, I will tell you that for me personally, whenever I get a bad review for either of my books, and, thank the good Lord Almighty, I haven't gotten a lot. There's been some, but not everybody's going to like my books. And I'm a brand new author, for crying out loud. I mean, look, I wrote EMBARK with the mindset that I am the worst. I'm horrible at grammar. That's why I'm a talk show host. So I know what I'll do. I'll go write a book, and we'll see how I can do in writing a novel. And thankfully, a lot of people have really enjoyed it, and it's had some success. But when I do receive those negative reviews, I think of Rian Johnson. And I just think, wow, man, that's nothing compared to what Rian Johnson must deal with. And not everybody is going to like what it is that you create. That's just part of the game. That's just how it happens. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
All right, little Mando talk. No spoilers, I promise. Before we dive into listener feedback this week, Baby Yoda. They announced this. Just yesterday, I guess, that you can finally go and start purchasing Baby Yoda Chilota merchandise. They call it the Child. I wish that had picked up. I wish the Child had picked up in the sort of the cultural zeitgeist, because he's not Baby Yoda, right? He's just a Yoda species. Part of the reason why I think Baby Yoda is so popular, by the way, there's a number of different reasons. But for one, the biggest reason, he's just cute. He's just a really cute character. He's fun to watch. I'm not kidding. I can just watch Yoda just walk around and pick up and do stuff and just coo. Right? I can just watch him do that all day. I also think another reason why Baby Yoda is so popular is because Yoda is so well known. And here we have this character that we've been seeing for many years now, that we're very much used to, that we know what Yoda's character is like. We also know how mischievous Yoda can be at times, especially when you look at the way he acted at the beginning of his first appearance in The Empire Strikes Back, and then to a lesser extent, but certainly still applies, in The Last Jedi as well. And then we see the smaller version. I think there's a part of our brain that identifies with the Child, because we recognize him as being a Yoda species, and so therefore we kind of implant our own thoughts about what he would be thinking or what he would be saying, right? And it's spread like wildfire with all the memes that have been made. I also think another reason why Baby Yoda is so popular is that there's a meta thing going on here. There's an innocence to Baby Yoda. In storytelling, you often want to have that character that represents you, the reader or viewer. And I think when it comes to The Mandalorian, to a certain extent, that's Baby Yoda, just experiencing everything, and The Mandalorian protecting him. And it's almost like The Mandalorian protecting the fandom. from all of the negativity that's been out there. So on a subconscious level, on a meta level, I really do sense that Yoda is sort of a bit of a very tiny green representation of us as a fandom, regardless of how you feel about Star Wars at the moment. And I think that's why there's been almost universal praise for this particular character for that very reason. We identify ourselves as Star Wars fans through that little tiny character. And I also think that when it comes to the success of The Mandalorian, I'd like to see the demographic breakdown of the people that enjoy the show and are really into it, because The Mandalorian are like little nuggets of a new hope. And I really dig it about that. I mentioned this at length last week, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but The Mandalorian, it's a very straightforward, simple show following this one character, and so we don't get the big and epic scope that we normally get in our Star Wars content, whether it's the films or even TV. You look at how expansive the Clone Wars were, certainly. Even Rebels, right, got really big in terms of the story and the different places and locations. With The Mandalorian, it's like little A New Hopes from the very beginning. Little New Hope adventures, right? In terms of pacing, very reminiscent. I love the inclusion of certain pieces of lore, especially in Episode 6, that we get in the show that tie it all together. It's a good and simple Star Wars that reminds us of that that provides that nostalgic feel. It's nostalgia fuel for those that grew up on the original trilogy. And I think that's a big reason why. It's a deviation from what we're used to. And it's also somewhat non-controversial. And I think there's a reason, I think that's another reason why the fans and people like you and me seem to like it as much as we do, because of that. I will say this, though. I don't find myself wanting to sit down and watch The Mandalorian over and over and over again the way that I do some of the films. And maybe I will at some point in time. Maybe I'll start to watch it more often because we're getting a new episode every week. I mean, that being said, I usually watch each episode like 3 times within the first day. So, but I guess that tells you more about my other Star Wars watching habits than it does The Mandalorian. But I also don't find myself gravitating to want to watch it over and over and over again. Maybe that'll change in the future. I wonder how it will do in terms of longevity and years down the line once the series is over, how it will be looked at, because it's not that deep in lore, unless they end up doing that now, which I think is a definite possibility, that they may end up getting more into the lore a little bit later on in the next season or in these last two episodes. So that's just a couple of comments that I wanted to share about The Mandalorian. It really is making the wait for The Rise of Skywalker a little bit easier, because I do really love the episodes. It's Star Wars, man. You just sit there and watch them. It looks so cool. And as a lover of ships, these past couple of episodes have just been fantastic when it comes to vehicles. Even though we don't get a bunch, what we get on screen is really, really cool. And I love it. I love it for that. But what do you think? Leave a comment on YouTube or drop me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com. And with that, we dive into listener feedback for this week.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
And we start off with Purple Flower, who says this: "One more week!" Exclamation point. Actually, many of them. OMG, that clip of Kylo hearing Palpatine's voice. I'm so excited. I know, me too, man. All right, friend of the show, Dylan, was the one who shared with me that article from Lindsay Romaine, so thank you, Dylan, for that. Let's see. I just wanted to share this article. I thought it was really interesting, though a bit hard on The Force Awakens. I love its stance on TLJ. By the way, if you remember my initial reaction to Episode 1 of The Mando, I liked it but didn't love it. Well, I absolutely loved every episode since, for a reason. Dylan. Thank you very much, Dylan. As always, I appreciate your support, man. Michael Rotunda says this: "How do you feel about the Rise of Skywalker leaks from Jedi Paxis? The whole movie was leaked about 3 months ago, and from the trailers and the soundtrack. Soundtrack, by the way, I haven't talked about it yet. Oh my gosh, the soundtrack is amazing. The tracks from the Rise of Skywalker of new music that John Williams put out has leaked online. I grabbed it. I have it on my iPhone. It's incredible. 23 tracks. I don't think this is the entirety of the soundtrack. A lot of the clips seem very small, so these are just new pieces. But man, there's one track called "We Go Together." Not a spoiler, and it's a sort of a lighter piece, and it's just fantastic. All right, getting back to this email. Do you have any comments on the whole film being leaked, or are you one of those weirdos who pretends like it's not out there? I'd really like to hear your thoughts on it. Okay, so I'll do the short version. I've said this many times before. Most movies I try to go in spoiler-free. When it comes to Star Wars and everything that it entails, including doing this show and my own personal views on it, I don't mind getting spoiled early. I do keep somewhat of a disconnect so that there is a level of what's the word? I guess innocence. But there's a lot of The Rise of Skywalker in the leaks that I haven't read. I've read some of the bigger notes. I read through all of the original Jedi Paxis leaks, but that was several months ago, and honestly, I forgot most of it. So I don't know what a lot of the connective tissue is. So I still know that I'm going to enjoy my viewing experience, but we're talking about just that first viewing. And I watch these films over and over and over again. So it's a trade-off. Do I keep myself spoiler-free and not do any of what I've been doing for the past year to have that one first experience going in completely fresh? Or do I go into spoiler territory and speculate and read it and share my thoughts? That's the route I go because I love this part of the fandom. So I don't mind seeing some of the leaks. I reach a point like we are right now with just about 5 days to go where I kind of check out. If there's anything new, I don't really go look at it because I'm so close, why bother? But for the most part, I don't mind reading leaks. So in terms of the leaks that we've seen so far from Jedi Paxis, I'm personally really excited. If that's the movie we're going to get, I think that it is ballsy. I think that it is different, not derivative of Return of the Jedi. I think there's going to be some depth to the lore presented, new force powers, and I love everything that I've read so far. So that's my opinion on it. I'm really looking forward to see how this movie shakes out, regardless of how it ends, regardless of people's fates. These are historical documents. I will accept them for what they are, and every single bit of footage that I've seen so far and what it means to the leaks in and of itself has me thrilled and excited. Probably even more so than I was going into The Last Jedi, and maybe even The Force Awakens. I didn't think that was even possible. But I really do think, at this point in time, without having seen the film, I think in terms of the movie, of these three movies, which ones I like the most, I think The Force Awakens is going to be third on the list. And we'll have to see whether or not I end up liking The Rise of Skywalker more than The Last Jedi. All right, Patrick Munson writes this. Watched your podcast in May. Liked it so much I just subscribed. Thank you. For the record, on December 10th, 2019. Now I have to go back to this video and start watching your videos. I've been watching Reylo-centric YouTube channels like Girls with Sabers, Star Wars Connection, and subsequent channel Lords of Sith podcasts. It's great to find Star Wars, a Star Wars-related channel that goes back pre-TFA. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that. Matiti Yahoo writes this. John, this is just my theory. In the trailer, we see the Millennium Falcon with the circle dish. Past two movies, it had a rectangle dish. What if that scene in the trailer is actually a flashback from the last time they were the rebellion before the start of the resistance? Thank you for your awesome content, and may the Force be with you. And I responded in kind online about this, but the rectangle dish got knocked off when Chewie was flying the Falcon on Crate, so this is actually a new dish, and that scene, I'm almost 100% sure, is not a flashback. But thank you so much for your comments either way. Friend of the show, Cortex Zero, writes this. I wish more YouTubers and fans online would take the same approach and have the same kind of faith in this movie that you do. Thank you, Cortex. The way you are going about it is the same way that I am, as opposed to those who think it's going to be some kind of franchise-ruining debacle. We haven't seen the movie. Just because there are leaks doesn't mean they are true, and Disney isn't stupid. They know what's riding on this emotionally for the fans and financially for themselves. And a really good point, by the way, is that the potential opening sequence that we saw, the footage that we saw in the most recent clip of Kylo Ren going to that dark rocky planet and going underneath that trapezoid-looking thing, and then the voices in his head, that was laid out in the leaks. But if you read those leaks without seeing the footage, it reads completely different. And I heard and I saw people online say that very thing, that, wow, I read those leaks, and it didn't sound very good at all. But watching that footage, oh my gosh, it looks amazing. Yeah, I think the whole movie's going to be that way. Thank you, Cortex, for the kind words. I really do appreciate it. Let's see. Everson writes this. I just want to say the sequel trilogy is by far my favorite one from Star Wars. I'm waiting for the trilogy's DVD box set to be released so I can put it beside my Lord of the Rings one. I mean, I'm at a point where I can't tell which one is better. It's Star Wars. It's always Star Wars. Unless it's not for you, Everson. That's totally fine. Thank you for the email. The Color of Caramel writes this. I'm glad you're excited about the leaks. I'm still annoyed because 5 years ago this wouldn't have happened, and I don't like the constant and mostly negative speculations. I think the movie is going to start with the Knights of Ren looking for something, especially with the numerous TV spots giving that much away. I also can't wait for this movie to hurry up and come out so we can get to the next wave of accusations from the 9% who insist on not liking the sequel trilogy. Thank the good Lord for Baby Yoda and the Mando to give that group something else to focus on. And I still want a movie where Rey and Kylo/Ben have an adventure where they must travel together, because I get the feeling when this movie is said and done, I'm going to want more scenes with just them. Since Rey and Kylo's interactions in The Last Jedi was very interesting, and Daisy and Adam's chemistry really works well together. I agree. Thank you, The Color of Caramel. Llewellyn, 28... Actually, I'm going to say... No, I'll do Llewellyn's here. Llewellyn 2844 says this. Such unwarranted optimism. How dare you? Such unwarranted optimism. Most Star Wars fans are awaiting the rise of Skywalker with absolute dread. All capital letters. Yeah. Because when fans are waiting for a movie with dread, they often buy so many tickets that it breaks box office records on pre-sales. And who are you to say what warrants or doesn't warrant a single individual's optimism? This is all subjective. I do not understand certain portions of the fandom, and Llewellyn 2844, I'm talking to you. Whatever. It's just it's so unwarranted optimism, right? I can be happy about what I want to be happy about, for crying out loud. Oh, I don't understand people sometimes. Friend of the show, Arduraith says this. I'm so excited I can hardly stand it. I'm loving the revelations they're releasing. The Mandalorian Chapter 5 was excellent. Seeing Han's table was thrilling, but also seeing the changes to that place post-Empire was juicy. This new mythology continues to be deep storytelling. Yeah, you're right. I couldn't help but think of Anakin as the Mando and a young fellow as Han, as his son Luke. So that was a bit of spoilers for that particular episode, but it's so vague. If you haven't seen it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Thank you, Arduraith, for the comment. And last one this week comes from Zeeth. Zeeth says this. I just reserved my tickets. Was a bit sad to see how empty the theater was. Well, it depends on when you're going to see it and how close or far is it from the release date, be that as it may. But I assume it will fill up as the day approaches. I'm sure it will. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. It disheartens me when the new fans hate on the current movies, when the same thing happened with the prequels, but we still showed our love and support of it, even though we did not like parts of it. Yep. Again, it's just the world that we live in now, man. Just get used to it and learn to compartmentalize and watch what you want to watch and listen to what you want to listen to and read what you want to read, and don't take the negativity seriously in any way, shape, or form. Wow, guys, that's it. We're done for this week. I got it in right in an hour, too. So here's the deal. Like I said before, little bit of a change, by the way. So this week coming up, when it comes to the Rise of Skywalker, I will record a piece of audio to put up on the podcast, sharing my first reaction to the film. It'll just be audio on the podcast. So if you're watching the video on YouTube, be sure to go and subscribe to My Nerd World on wherever you want to go, wherever you go to find podcasts at, to hear my instinctive reaction to the film Thursday, after my Thursday night viewing. I'm then seeing the film again on Friday at 10 a.m., and after that 10 a.m. showing, after having seen it twice, I will sit down and do the full show for the week with my extended sort of spoiler talks about the film. The reaction show, the reaction audio that I'll post on Thursday night will be spoiler-free. Okay, so the big show will be spoiler-filled. I say there's a bit of a change there because the Blaster app that I've been using, unfortunately, is now on pause. So if you've downloaded the Blaster app and you're wondering why I haven't posted any audio blasts as of late, that's because, unfortunately, the company that was partnered in developing the Blaster app, not the Blaster app company, but the company that developed the app itself, went under because of a massive computer hack. Because of that, the Blaster app is currently offline and looking for a new home and place to host. So Blaster is currently on hold right now. So that's why I'll be recording it in other ways, probably through Spreaker like I normally do. So after the show, the movie on Thursday, again, instinctive reaction, spoiler-free. Full show that Friday into that Saturday with my full spoiler-filled reaction to The Rise of Skywalker. And I want to hear from you every step of the way. So, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. Also, you can leave a comment on YouTube as well. And one last thing of note, and then we'll say goodbye for the show this week. And that is, remember, if you want to support the show and you haven't picked up a copy of EMBARK or EMBARK Treasure in Darkness, Book 1 and 2, I did finish the third book just yesterday, and now we'll start the editing phase of it. You can go and pick up a copy. You can get the first book in ebook for 99 cents, and then you can pick up A Treasure in Darkness in ebook for $2.99. The paperbacks are $11.99. Purchase of either one gets you the audiobook at a drastically discounted rate, produced and narrated by me. Book 3 should be out sometime in probably late February, I'm guessing. It takes a while to get the editing done. So if you want to support the show, go and pick up a copy for you and a friend. They make fantastic Christmas gifts. I really would appreciate it. If you've read the books already and haven't left a positive review, please go to Amazon and leave a positive review for either book. I really, again, would appreciate it. And the last thing is, I'll be appealing to you once again very soon because I have EMBARK up on a website called Tailflick. Tailflick gets books in front of television and movie producers. They can peruse their library of books and pick ones that they want to have, that they want to turn into live action content. EMBARK has been selected to be featured along with a series of other books that fans can go vote on, and the book that gets the most fan reaction to it will get a prize, which includes a meeting with a director or producer. So EMBARK was chosen to be a part of this contest. So as soon as I have the details, I'll be reaching out again on the show and via the mailing list. If you haven't joined, just say, hey, John, I want to join your EMBARK book and podcast mailing list. Email me, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. And I'll be sending out and asking and giving you the details of how you can help me out with this promotion and hopefully win this contest. Because my big dream is to have my EMBARK series turned into either a live action show, on one of the streaming platforms, or a major motion picture. That's the big goal. So again, details on that coming up. And I guess that's it. I hope you're having a great holiday season so far. I'm super excited. I can't wait. We're 5 days away. Even closer, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. I guess I keep saying 5 days away. I'm recording this on Friday, so it's a little bit farther than that, but it tells you where my mind is at right now. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll be back again. And the next time that you hear my voice and see my big old smiling face, it will be after I've seen The Rise of Skywalker. I'm so giddy. Thank you so much. May the Force be with you. See you later. Bye.
The Force will be with you. Always.
My Nerd World.